again, everyone. Welcome to Calamasa Insider. I am Will Coble, City Manager for the City of Calamasa. So glad to have you on board this week. We are back after the Thanksgiving break. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving and was able to spend some time with family. And hopefully, sometimes when we get together with family, it doesn't always go smoothly. But for me, it went very well, and I hope it went well for you as well. So we are here on Friday, December 6th, 2024. And before we get to our main topic of the day, which is social media, and there's one thing that I want to address in particular from a city in Canada. Before we get to that, a couple of things. Let's talk about election results. So as of Tuesday, December 3rd, the Riverside County Registrar of Voters has certified the election results. And so I have those for you right now. So I will share them with you. So in the city of Calamasa, our results are as follows. In first place, and remember, the top three, this is an at-large election, so you can vote for up to three, and the top three vote getters get elected. So in first place was Eric Cundiff with 3,104 votes, or 27.65% of votes cast in this particular election. In second place is Linda Molina at 2,580 votes, 22.98%, and Edgar Garcia finished third with 1,953 votes at 17.4%. Finishing in fourth was Wendy Hewitt at 1,918 votes, 17.08%. And finally, Bill Davis at 1,672 votes, or 14.89%. So that means that this coming Tuesday, December 10th, at a special city council meeting, Eric Cundiff, Linda Molina, and Edgar Garcia will be sworn in as our council members for this election. Looking at other cities around us, let's start with the city of Yucaipa, just to our north. The city of Yucaipa had three seats up for grabs, and a recall on the election, and a sales tax measure. So in the recall, and they do their elections by district. So instead of having at-large elections, they've got an actual, they actually vote by district, and you vote to represent. It's kind of like the House of Representatives, right? You don't vote for all 435 of them. You vote for the person that's representing your area. So it's kind of like that kind of thing, but on a city scale. So in District 1, Councilmember Matt Garner was recalled 65.73% to 34.27%. which means that the city council will make an appointment to District 1. So they've been taking applications for that, and they will make a decision once they swear in the new council on December 9th on who they're going to select for that council seat. And there's 2 years remaining on that seat, so that district seat will be up in 2026. In District 2, District 3. District 2 was not up for election. That's Chris Venable. Chris Venable is the representative there. In District 3, the winner of that election was Judy Woolsey. She finished in front of Gigi Hanna and Lyle Vick. In District 4, Mayor Justin Beaver won re-election there over Christine Moeller and Gordon Renshaw. And in District 5, John Thorpe, who is the incumbent, ran unopposed, and so he will be confirmed as the District 5 representative there. So their council, so they will have they have two new they will have two new council members once the District 1 representative is appointed. The District 3 election was going to be a new person regardless, because the incumbent Bobby Duncan chose not to run for re-election. So that was going to be a result of a new council member no matter what. So they will have one new person for sure being sworn in on December 9th, and then they will have also an appointment to the District 1 seat, which will be a new person as well. In the city of Beaumont, the two incumbents that ran for election did win re-election, and that was Julio Martinez and David Fenn, and they won handily in their race. They also have at-large seats in Beaumont. The city of Banning had four seats up for election. In District 1, current mayor Alberto Sanchez was defeated. He finished second. So they do districts. So District 1 with 709 votes was Planning Commissioner Leroy Miller won election there. District 2, by a margin of 5 votes, Cindy Barrington defeated Miriam Ramirez, 721 votes to 716 votes. So, you talk about what the results look like in Calimesa. Someone was able to win, in District 1, they only got 709 votes, and in District 2, it only took 721 votes to win election there. Incumbent Sherry Flynn won re-election in District 3. She had gotten a seat on a short term, and so she was running for the full term in District 3, and she won that pretty handily, actually, 2,717 votes to Debbie Robbins, who had 1,233 votes. And in District 4, David Happy, who was appointed midterm, was running for a 2-year seat, so District 4 will be up again for election in 2026. He was defeated by Richard Royce by a margin of 1,619 votes, and David Happy received 1,186. So Banning will have 3 new council members seated, and the only person that did not have to run for election was Colleen Wallace. So she will stay on the council along with Sherry Flynn, and then they have three new people in Leroy Miller, Cindy Barrington, and Richard Royce. So those are what it looks like in the pass area for our elections. And again, for Calimesa, our new council will be sworn in on Tuesday, December 10th at 6 p.m. Now, tomorrow is the Calimesa Christmas Parade starting at 5 p.m. That'll run along Calimesa Boulevard, starting at Avenue K down to Myrtlewood. The parade is put on by the Calimesa Chamber of Commerce with assistance from the city for logistics, street closures, and cleanup. So we hope to see you all there. It's been a great turnout. I will be on the first float with most of my family. I believe my daughter will not be able to make it. She has dance rehearsals, so she won't be able to make it. But my boys and my wife will be on the float with me. So come check us out. If you listen to the podcast and you have a sign you want to hold up and you say, I listened to the podcast, to let me know, that'd be cool. But if you don't, if not, no big deal. But it'd be cool to see, people like, hey, you actually did listen. That's pretty cool. So, but again, regardless, I hope to see you all out there. It's always a fun event. Okay. So today I want to talk about, I've talked about a little bit this in social media, and in an episode called, I think it was Jumping to Conclusions. And so we had, somebody back a month ago or so making accusations online, and it wasn't on an official city page. And, but it does, social media is kind of a double-edged sword. Cities need to use it, and they need to use it effectively, because that is a very popular way of how people get information, news and information. And so we have to recognize that as a city. And I think that not only do we need to recognize that as a city, but if our goal is to reach people where they are, which again, this is the point of our podcast, is to try to reach people, give information on a longer form. Social media is more quick hits type of thing. And, a few weeks ago, I talked about, a social media post on our Instagram page that got a lot of feedback on Cherry Valley Boulevard. And I had some clarification on that, but it did garner a discussion, and it did garner attention and comments. And so that's the focus of what I want to talk about today, because this is not something that's happening in Calimesa. I just want to emphasize that because I'm talking about this doesn't mean that's a direction we're going to go. I mean, it may be one day. That might be a policy direction that we go in. But I do want to talk about how a city in Canada, so this is Cranbrook, British Columbia. It's in southeast British Columbia, population of about 21,000, so about twice the size of Calimesa. And they released this statement back on November 25th. I'm going to read the statement in full because I think it's important to understand the context of where they're coming from with this. So again, from Cranbrook, British Columbia. To reduce disrespectful comments and to help prevent the spread of misinformation, the commenting feature on the City of Cranbrook's corporate Facebook and X, formerly Twitter pages, will be discontinued effective immediately. The original intent of commenting on social media posts was to share ideas. However, that has changed considerably over the years. We have seen a marked increase in the amount of online harassment, abuse, and in some instances of hate speech towards members of council and city staff, specifically on our corporate Facebook and X pages over the past year. This is according to their corporate communications officer, Chris Sattel. The exposure of our followers of council and our staff to this type of online abuse is completely inappropriate and provides zero value to anyone. The city is stopping short of pulling the plug on public comments on all its social media pages, at least for now. Comments will continue to be allowed on select social media platforms such as Instagram, LinkedIn, and Threads, where interactions have been more civil and productive, particularly in departments like recreation and culture. Our staff with recreation and culture are finding their experiences with the public much more civil and find that their specific Facebook and Instagram pages to be helpful tools to respond to questions around programming and events in a timely way. For these reasons, we will keep these pages operating as usual, at least for now, Sattel said, adding, it's something we will be watching closely. Cranbrook is not the first municipality in British Columbia to limit or stop public comments on their social media pages. The city of Fernie, the city of Victoria, and District of Tofino have all turned off public commenting because of similar issues. While we have many productive means to hear from residents through our website, email, telephone, in-person, and social media, we have zero tolerance for any threats or abuse of staff and members of council, verbal or otherwise, either in person or online. We have a duty to protect staff and members of the council to all threats, along with ensuring that we protect and support the mental health of our people in this organization, according to their mayor, Wayne Price. Despite the comment restrictions on these select few social media sites, the city remains open to communication through other channels such as email and the 311 service, ensuring that residents still have ways to reach out to staff and council members. The city plans to continue monitoring the situation to ensure that interactions remain respectful and constructive. And I found out about this through a post on LinkedIn, actually. And it sparked quite a debate. And it's interesting to have the debate on a site like LinkedIn, which is for professional connections. So I'm connected to a lot of other, city managers and city staff in various other places all over the country, and and actually in other parts of the world as well, particularly in Canada. So Canada has similar setups for cities in terms of how, council manager form of government and things like that. But I think one of the most distinguishing factors is this is in Canada. So they're not obviously subject to the United States Constitution. They're subjected to the Canadian Constitution. And so the immediate reaction is to think, wow, okay, you wouldn't be able to do this in the United States because you're limiting free speech. But wait. Think about this. If I put a statement out on our website is not built to have comments. Our website is to push information out. But not everyone goes to our website, and not everybody signs up for notifications. Where can I get a bigger audience to get that same exact message out? And the answer is social media. But if it's meant to be a one-way communication, how is limited comments a suppression of free speech? Where it becomes an issue is if you allow comments and then you delete them. That is a very, very different thing than if you don't allow the comments in the first place. But that doesn't mean you can't show up to a council meeting and make public comment on it, or you can't show up in person or send an email or even send a direct message through social media. And so, the feedback that you get, if you want to let your opinion known, there's plenty of ways to let us know, right? And right now, quite frankly, commenting on social media, I guess, is one of those ways to do it. But what I see, it's always probably the same 6 to 10 people, and there's occasionally other people that show up most of which actually don't even live in Calimesa, to be honest with you. One doesn't even live in the state that comments frequently. And I know she doesn't live in California anymore, and she hasn't for a while. And so it does make this interesting dynamic. And sometimes the comments have nothing to do with the post in question. It's, hey, if there's like a power shut, a PSPS alert that we're sharing from Southern California Edison, we're pushing that information. Well, there's really unless you have questions about, well, do you know where, do you have more specifics on what areas this might affect, or do you know when this is going to be lapsing or whatever, right? Those kind of questions that maybe are relevant, other people may have questions on. But then there's things that are just completely irrelevant, like, hey, vote for these 2 council candidates, don't vote for these other ones. Well, you can't, those are not even, voting itself is not even within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. So you couldn't even do public comment on it, because you can't campaign and stump at the public comment podium. That's not the purpose of it. The purpose is to address the council about something that they can control. They can't control the election. They can't control the election results. They can't control who gets elected, nor should they, right? Because they're the ones that are running for election, right? So, people that try to show up and make campaign speeches for their 3 minutes in public comment doesn't work, because that's not within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. So, and so the debate that ensued on LinkedIn on this was very interesting. There are some people that agreed with the move, and there's others that said that thought it was wrong. One commenter says, blocking comments on social media is very out of touch for the world we live today. For the world we live in today. Face the comments and develop a policy to deal with it. Another person said that, absolutely, this is people that disagreed with the move. Absolutely not. It's an easy way to gauge public sentiment on issues. You don't have to like the comments, but if you're smart, you can gain some insight into what people think. And I don't agree with that, at least where the comments have gone. We get much more robust feedback from people that show up, that email, that let us know of issues that are in the community. Every time anything that with economic development, someone says, we need a Costco. Okay. Well, the city doesn't control that. The city doesn't build businesses. We can't say this particular property has to have a Costco. Nothing else can be built there. We can't do that. We can say this is zoned for regional commercial, which is what Costco would fall into. But that doesn't have to be Costco. It could be a Home Depot. It could be a Target. It could be something else. It could be any number of uses that are allowed under the commercial regional zoning. So, there are, and then it sparks like, yeah, that's what they need to do, and all these kind of things. And sometimes, the other thing is that, and so one of the comments in response to that one that I just read said this: I wish I could support the side of transparency and open comments. It seems right, just another avenue to communicate publicly. There is one fundamental problem: the competing and conflicting interests. People are incentivized online to gain notoriety. There are many who have careers doing just that, including millionaires that became that way by going viral. Point being, commenters aren't necessarily doing so for the sake of making things better. Their likely interest is to gain notoriety. I'm not sure how many local governments want a staff of communications team to combat those types of public actors. And that's the point. Anybody can say anything if you open it up, right? If it's open. And again, our comments are open right now, and I'm not suggesting that we're going to go in that direction. But what I'm saying is that it does take time and resources away from other things that staff could be doing, especially when it comes to misinformation, because people post rumors that are completely untrue. They say things to make it sound like they know what they're talking about when they don't. Or they just completely lie because they have some other ulterior motive, or they have some hidden agenda, right? Any number one of those things. And if they're lying about things, and if they're making things up, it's up to us to correct that. Well, if my staff's taking time to correct that and having to play whack-a-mole to go after these kind of things, luckily it's not a huge issue for us. This is one of the reasons that we're not going in that direction. But if you have a dedicated staff person and we're spending taxpayer money to combat constant misinformation on our official pages, because again, the other thing about it is your official Facebook page or official social media pages on, name any platform are going to have mainly a bigger audience that they want to try to attract. And so they're trying to do it for themselves. So should taxpayer money be used to combat those type of people and give attention to those type of people at the expense of doing something else more productive that's going to be more productive for the community? That's the question, right? And again, these are just questions and things to consider when you think about it. But the overarching consideration is free speech. That is one of the most fundamental rights that we have, our ability to address and critique our government. It has to remain, right? And that's always the argument, and that's always the concern about shutting comments off if you've already allowed them. If you haven't allowed them, that's a different story. But a lot of times, what we're trying to do with our social media page is just to give you information. Hey, this event's happening. Or, hey, just a heads up, this street's going to be closed. And here's the reason why it's going to be closed. But, we're not going to get, if someone says, I don't think the city should close that street, well, what are we going to do? Not close it because someone said we shouldn't close it? Like, we have a project we have to do and there's a reason we're closing it. We're just letting you know. Would you rather us not let you know at all to avoid those comments? Or do you have those comments, then you have to respond to them and have that back and forth and have a debate now about whether a project has merit or not, that even though the decision's already been made? If you want to have an impact on that, come to the council meeting where they actually discussed it, because all of our meeting agendas are posted online and open to the public, that kind of stuff, right? So, but again, it's always goes back to, are you suppressing, is there an accusation or a perception that you're suppressing free speech? And if it's just about criticism, I don't think the city is doing a good job in X, Y, and Z. That's fair game. We don't expect everyone to be 100% happy with everything that we do. We have to expect that as a public agency that you're going to get criticism. But if you are saying you're making that decision because you're corrupt, well, now you've made a really big accusation, and you better hope that it's true. You better have receipts to show that it's true. And I've seen accusations like that, and I know they're not true. And that's what we talked about back a few weeks back when we talked about the County Line Road project in TKE Engineering. That is demonstrably false, what people are accusing TKE of in that case, to the point where they're a private company. They could consider legal action for that, for disparaging their company wrongly without any evidence or proof that that's happening. It's just because they think it's that way because it's something that they don't like. And a lot of times people jump to conclusions that, well, if you support a project I don't like, it's because you have an ulterior motive. There's something in for you personally. Or maybe you just have a difference of opinion. That's very well possible, right? So it's an interesting thing. And when a city comes out and is so bold in doing that and how they're doing it, it does spark this debate as to, wow, okay, how do we deal with this? But again, it's also in a different country, different set of rules, and how that happens. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the Canadian Constitution and its stance on free speech and all that kind of stuff. I don't have any knowledge of that, but I do know in the United States that when you're talking about like criticisms of or attacks on elected officials, hey, when you run for office in the United States, that's one of the things you're signing up for, is to get attacked. Now, again, you could not like a decision that somebody made, and that's perfectly fine. But to say that they made a decision that you didn't like because they're corrupt or because they're on the take or something like that, that's a completely different thing. And if you're going to make those accusations, they better be true. They better be true, and you better have proof of it. Because there's a lot of people out there, unfortunately, that think that people make decisions simply that people that make decisions that are not in line with what they think. Therefore, the only reason that someone would ever think differently than me is because they have a self-righteous or a self-motivated goal in mind, whether it's a contract or things like that. I remember, outgoing Mayor Davis being accused of, approving a warehouse because he's going to get work, associated because he's a contractor. That man has not done a single job in Calimesa since he was on the planning commission, just to avoid any semblance at all of conflict of interest or impropriety or things like that. He doesn't do any work for anybody, let alone for someone that he made an approval decision for. So he does nothing in our city. He probably could have. I'm sure there's a lot of people that did want him to do work because he's on top of all that. Edison, consistently calls them one of probably the most honest contractor that they work with. But yet, an accusation from someone that doesn't really actually know who he is, but may have, hurt their feelings, all of a sudden makes that accusation. And just because they don't like what he said, or they don't like the decision he made, and so they make an accusation to get in. To me, at that point, it's not even about the accusation, it's about getting attention. It's about getting eyeballs and going, oh, wow, well, because, if she said that, it must, because most rational and reasonable people would only make that accusation if they knew it was true and they had actual proof of it. No one would even fathom most rational, reasonable people would never fathom making an accusation that serious without actually knowing it's 100% true. And we are sometimes naive to believe that that everyone else is that way. Most people are, some people aren't. And some people will exploit that fact. And unfortunately, we've seen that happen here in this city. But anyway, I'm probably going into areas that I probably shouldn't, but it does always bring that interesting concept. And so one of the things that we're working on is how we can better communicate with the public in terms of how we operate our social media. So be on the lookout for that. We're going to be rolling out a plan, I think, come in 2025. And speaking of 2025, as we roll into the new year, I do want to hear from you. I do want feedback in terms of what do you want to hear on the show? What are some of the topics that you want me to talk about that we haven't addressed on the show here yet? So email me, calamesainsider@gmail.com or wcoble@calamesa.gov. Please send me an email or give us a call at City Hall and let me know what you want to hear about on the show, and we'll bring in those topics, or if there's guests you want to hear, there's certain people that you want me to interview. I do plan on having, hopefully, if they want to come on, each of the council members, both our current council members and our new ones as well, to talk about kind of what their path was and what their motivation to get on council. So we'll sit down with each of them individually. And I've said that I'm trying to line up interviews with people that are at regional, like RCTC and WRCOG and some of the regional agencies that we work with. So I'm trying to line those up too. But if there's other things that you want to hear about as a listener of the show, please reach out and let me know. So with that, we're going to wrap up the show. The next city council meeting is that special meeting to certify election results, swear those that were elected and reelected, and to name a new mayor. So the mayor will be determined at this meeting, and it will take place on Tuesday, December 10th at 6 p.m. at the Norton Young Love Senior Center. We encourage you to attend in person. It's probably going to be pretty crowded because there's going to be a lot of family and friends of those got elected. So I expect there's going to be a lot more attendance than normal. So if you're gonna come in person, come early to make sure you get parking. But if you don't want to attend in person, you can still watch an Artist City's YouTube page, like always, by going to going to calamesa.gov/YouTube and then clicking on the live tab. And just a heads up, and I'll remind you on the next couple of shows, City Hall will be closed for the holidays beginning on Monday, December 23rd, and that will run through, and we will remain closed until Monday, January 6th. Of course, emergency services will still be running like normal, and we'll also have public works on standby should any infrastructure emergencies occur. So those things will be handled. So we hope to see everyone at the Christmas parade tomorrow at 5 p.m. And until then, I'm Will Coble. This is the Calamasa Insider Podcast. I hope you have a great weekend.